more you live aware of God's power, wisdom, holiness, faithfulness, and love, the more you will live humbly aware of how deeply needy you really are. It is when you are living in the light of God's glory that you get the most accurate sense of who you are. And an accurate sense of self will always lead you to affirm how desperate your need of grace really is. This accurate sense of self then spills over to the way you view your life and the way you view others. Rather than looking at the good things in your life and saying, look what I achieved for myself, you look at these good things and say, look at the many evidences in my life of the fact that God has been with me and has blessed me with his grace. Looking at life this way changes the way you look at others. When you affirm how you've been the daily recipient of God's patience, kindness, forgiveness, and love, there will tend to be a natural tenderness and patience in your responses to others. People who love best are those deeply appreciative of the way they have been loved. People who forgive most faithfully and willingly are those who know they are in desperate need of daily forgiveness. The most patient are those who recognize that every day they are blessed with God's patience and kindness.
A great quote. Perfect for this topic too.
Yes, it is. And that came from Paul David Tripp. I keep quoting from this book because it's so good. Paul David Tripp's book on marriage, but it's good for all relationships. And welcome, friends. We're so thankful that you've joined us. This is Looking Up, a podcast for Christian women. Carla and I are going to be talking about a topic today that we're both already hesitant about because I don't know about you, but my toes feel bruised just from thinking about it.
Yeah, let's change the topic. Let's talk about something else.
Let's just pull a sudden change of topic. Yeah, but it's, and that it's really happens kind of that way a lot. Sometimes we'll mention a topic, something we want to talk about because we feel like we need it. Our heart needs to go there and our prayers need to go there. And today is definitely one of those topics. So we pray that we will both approach this honestly, humbly, encouragingly for ourselves and for all of our friends listening in. Carla, how are you doing? I'm
doing well. I'm going to try not to cough my way through this one. I don't know. Why did we get frogs right before recording? I think I was fine up until 5 minutes before.
Yeah. I almost hate to say this out loud lest I jinx it, but mine's been a lot better since I've started taking Singular at night. So I guess it really was allergy related.
Find some Singular.
Yeah. And I can kind of tell by the end of the day as it starts wearing off, about 5 or 6 p.m., I might clear my throat more. And I think it's just that because I take it before bed at night.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like starting to wear off by the evening of the next day. So, but it really has made a big difference. I'm so grateful. The best part about it, aside from not clearing my throat all through this podcast, the best part about it is getting to sing in worship because I can sing all the songs. I don't lose my voice. I'm so thankful for that. It was really affecting
2 years, right?
Yes. It was over 2 years. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't something serious.
Me too.
Well, we're getting ready to leave tomorrow evening. Yeah, this is Tuesday. We're leaving Wednesday evening where John has to teach Bible class in San Marcos. And then we're going to start heading toward Denver. And Denver has that dry air.
Yes.
And I guess because it doesn't seem to affect, maybe they just don't talk about it, but it doesn't seem to affect those that live there all the time the same way. But whenever we get there, I just feel like my eyelids are sticking together and it's gross. And the throat is dry and your nose is dry. Everything is so dry.
Your lips are dry.
Yeah.
I was constantly applying chapstick the whole time we lived there.
Yeah. Like I just had on subscription of Burt's Bees. But anyway, maybe that'll clear up some of the frogs in my throat. Multiple frogs. But we're
Frogs be gone.
Yeah. That should be a medicine. Just called Frogs Be Gone.
Frogs be gone.
Yeah. Yes. But we're going for lectureship and to pick up some more of our stuff. We're taking the trailer, dragging an empty trailer up there and bringing back some things that we had left there. And so we'll be there from Wednesday. Well, no, we won't get there till Thursday until about Tuesday. And you're not going to be there, but Neil.
No, but Neil and Dale are both going because they're both speaking and they're heading up Thursday and they'll be back Monday night, I think. But I'm excited.
Are they driving?
No.
Okay.
They're flying.
Yeah.
I'm excited for them just to have this time together. Just the two of them hanging out and talking. And they've already got all these plans of hitting their favorite restaurants.
You know which ones they are?
Oh, I do. I don't know if I should share, but let's see, when will this air? They'll still be
Monday.
out.
It'll be
No,
after
it'll be
lectureship.
after. Yeah. Okay. So Bojo's, of course,
Yeah, definitely.
probably the one in Idaho Springs,
Hmm.
and the Mountain Man pizza pie is
Yeah,
the, it's
it's
this
like this
fat.
thick.
It's this thick. Cinzetti's. Did you ever go there?
What's it called?
Cinzetti's.
I
It's
don't
kind
think
of
so.
north, pretty far north of the city, but it's Italian buffet.
Hmm.
Um, Hacienda, Colorado is their favorite
Hmm.
Mexican place. So anyway,
Well, that one's
like,
closed.
is it, what did you just say?
Hacienda is the one there on Wadsworth is closed.
It is?
Yeah, you can still go to
Oh,
Uncle Julio's, which was bought out by Hacienda, but that's up in Wheat Ridge,
oh,
so you're gonna be
oh, they're
disappointed.
gonna have to come up with a, well, they also wanted to hit Mod Market, and you're like, I was like, you've only got so many days.
Hmm. It's all about the food.
It's all about the food. It really is. So,
Hmm.
but I'm excited for them and just to get to hang out together.
Yeah,
I'm excited for me to have a few days of quiet.
you just said that out loud. You know that, right? You're gonna miss him so much.
I'm gonna miss him so much. I
Hmm.
am. I am.
Yeah.
For real, I am.
Hmm. But you're gonna
Anyways,
also enjoy your quiet time.
yes. Well, I'll be
Speaking,
praying for you to have safe travels. By the time this airs, you still won't be back. So I'll
no,
still be
because we're
praying.
driving. We're gonna be doing a lot of driving. That's gonna not be the
Yeah,
funnest part, but
yeah,
you can pray for safe drive.
I will. At least
Uneventful drive.
uneventful driving, and at least it's not winter.
Yes. Yeah. And hopefully the aspens are starting to turn. It'll be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be definitely cooler than it is here because we're in second summer right now. Speaking of food, I tried something yesterday. Have you
What did
heard
you
of
try?
the new Chick-fil-A sandwich with pimento cheese on it?
I have heard of that. Yeah. Is it good?
It was good, but I
Mhm.
was like, I was a little disappointed because it wasn't like rock my world good.
I
Hopefully
feel
I
like
don't offend anyone by saying that because it seems to be
yeah,
such a big deal. But
I know.
yeah, it was good.
Hmm.
It was messy though because it's pimento cheese with honey on it. I mean, I didn't eat the whole thing because I just felt like your face.
That sounds terrible.
Well, hot honey on chicken is a big deal now. And
Yeah.
I guess it's just like cheese, but pimento cheese, but it was all sticky and the pimento cheese was kind of melted out of it. So it was very messy.
Hmm.
And I kind of couldn't get over the guilt of, I don't know how many calories that was, but I ate like half of it. And it was
Hmm.
good, but it wasn't something that I was just like, wow, this is life changing. So, not exactly sure why I brought that up since it wasn't life changing, but
Well, we were talking about food
yeah,
and restaurants, and I really want to like pimento cheese, and I feel like everybody really wants me to like it. That just does not sound good to me.
I'm surprised you don't like it.
Well, probably because the only kind I've really ever had was that store-bought kind that my grandma used to buy.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, that's not
disgusting.
pimento cheese. John calls that youth devotional pimento cheese.
Yeah, that's just not good. And everybody here really makes it a lot, and they have their homemade versions, which I'm sure is delicious. But
Have you tried them?
nope.
Okay, well, you need to try them because they're a lot
Mhm.
different than that little container of store-bought. And I'm not a big, that didn't appeal to me, but there's a restaurant here, it's called Jack Allen's. And that's the appetizer that they bring out. They just put a little plate of a little mound of pimento cheese with some crackers on it. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't really care much about that, but it didn't. This is the deal. I would like pimento cheese without pimentos.
Same.
The pimentos are basically just color, and I don't need
Mhm.
them, and I usually pick them out. But the
Yeah.
cheese part, I mean,
Yeah.
it's usually in the better stuff, it's like sharp cheddar and cream cheese. I mean, there's nothing not to like. So next time you're here, you're gonna have to try. There's
Oh.
some at HEB. You have to.
Ow.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
I'll do
we'll
it for you.
we'll make it work for you.
Okay. I'll do
Okay.
it for you. Speaking of Chick-fil-A,
Hmm.
Neil got me a little like bag of surprise goodies the other day for when he's out of town. And
He's so thoughtful.
he really is. And one of them was a gift card to Chick-fil-A. So I could grab something while he's gone. A magazine to read, he got me some K cups of that Southern pecan
Mhm.
coffee that I like because normally we have those like
The jet fuel
refillable.
stuff or the
We have the refillable K cups for
mhm.
me, and I buy the bagged coffee and just fill those. But
Mhm.
he said this way you won't have to worry about it. You can just use. Anyway, it's like little thoughtful things like that. So
Since he's not there to make your coffee.
since he's not there, yeah, yeah, got to make my own coffee. It's a rough life.
It is a rough life. Mhm. So we're having a birthday party for mom tonight. Her birthday is actually tomorrow, the 18th. She'll be 85. When you get to be 85,
Oh,
you get to say your age, right?
yes. Happy birthday to your mom.
So Doug and Karen are already gone. We had a little birthday thing for her last weekend while they were here. We fixed some chicken gumbo. She likes that. And Doug and Karen came over and it was fun. I think we just don't get together with them very much unless he's out here with mom, whatever. So um anyway, tonight is more of a little birthday party for people there at Hill Country Care and people from the church here that know her and love her. So it's not going to be huge, maybe 15 or 20 people, but
Is it
so
going to be
soon.
there?
Yeah, there's a back
Okay.
patio and they have some nice chairs and they have the twinkle lights around the edge of the patio. And it's probably going to be hot, but that's just the way it is in Texas until about December. So the way it is. So that's what I got going on. As soon as we finish recording, I'm
Oh,
gonna go find some flowers and do some things like that. So
oh, that'll be special.
yeah, I think
You're a
so.
good, you're a good daughter.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not, but sometimes I am. Today I am.
Today you are.
Maybe not tomorrow. No promises tomorrow.
You were supposed to ask me about my hair so
Oh, how
that,
long has it been since you colored your hair?
oh, thanks for asking so that I wouldn't have to bring it up and sound vain, remember?
You're not vain.
Well, that's another topic. Yeah, it's been 6 months.
Wow.
Yesterday made 6 months. So actually, by the time this airs, it'll be closer to 6 months in a week.
Yeah.
It will be 6 months in a week the day this airs. So
Can you
that's
turn around a
how
little
long
bit
it's
so we
been.
can see the
And
back of your head? Because that's where it looks darker. And at the
mhm,
crown, yeah, it's really cute.
thanks. Thanks. It's starting to
It
get to that awkward. I'm growing it out, pretty sure. So it's at that awkward where it's a little too long to not do anything with, but when I try and blow dry and do something with it, it looks silly. So
Do you have one of those round brush dryers?
no.
It might be too short to use that, but well, I thought didn't you say that if you trim it, it grows faster?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe you
I'm
need a
definitely
trim.
gonna get a trim, but I just don't want her to cut any more length off. But it's growing pretty fast.
Yeah,
Uh
you can definitely see the line there when you did that.
yep. As we were, yeah, you can see it there.
Yeah,
As we were outside the other day, Neil went, oh, I like your gray hair.
it's one of those things you have to think about. Do I like that or not?
I know. Well, I was out in the sunlight. It was very bright, and I think the sunlight just hits it just right. And he just kept going, "Oh, it's really showing. It's really showing, but it looks good. I like it." I was going, thanks.
Thanks, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah, you
Uh,
don't have all that much. Yours to me, I mean, it's hard to see on here because it just looks brown. It doesn't look
yeah.
gray,
Yeah.
but
Don't make me do Captain.
yeah, but you do it so well. See, you've got it up there, and I have it on my eyebrows. That's why I have the bangs.
Your
And
eyebrows?
my dad's eyebrows, they're like caterpillars, and dad is reincarnating on my face. So I leave the eyebrows where they kind of cover them.
They're
They do go
gray?
crazy.
Let me
No,
see.
no, they're like that.
Oh, they're Captain Caveman eyebrows.
I'll show you later.
Show us now.
That's it.
You have great
Moving
eyebrows.
along to another subject.
All right. Yes, I didn't mean for us to spend so much time on that. Shall we get into our topic today?
Sure.
Or do you have
Sounds good.
anything else you'd like to chit chat about?
Well, I was going to tell you about the island that Mike is building me, and he brought it
Oh,
last weekend. Did I tell you
yeah,
that he's
you
doing that?
did. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
well, it's not quite finished yet. So he brought, I love it. It's
mhm,
big. It's kind of bigger than I thought it was going to be, but it fits in the space just right. I still
mhm,
have room to pull my oven door down. I still have room to pull the dishwasher down. But on the side that faces the stove, it has, I'm not sure what you call it, but it's like a 5 or 6 inch wide space that I can tuck cookbooks down into it. And then
Oh, cool.
it has a bar. It's not a bar. I'll make Micah cringe when well, he won't listen to this. But it's just, it's a strip of wood so that the things don't fall out.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other side, I have 4 drawers, and 2 of them are pretty deep, so I can actually put pots and pans, which I've always wanted to be able to do that. And he made me this
Nice.
special surprise little, well, he told me he was going to order that a little spice rack kind of thing so that the spices lay down. It's like 3 different graduated sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he brought me the little bottles. I think you've somewhere in my memory, we talked about these on the podcast. The little glass bottles with the labels for your
Mm-hmm.
spices.
Mm-hmm.
He brought me those. So he's
Oh,
not finished with the top. He's got to build the top, and he ordered the drawer pull. So right now it has no top. I mean, it's got a top because it's the top of the drawers, but the actual
what is the top?
it's all oak.
Okay.
It matches my antique table. I asked him to try
Mm-hmm.
to match it as much as he could, but it has blue painter's tape for the drawer pulls. Well, I'll send you pictures of it later, but I probably won't share it on the podcast until it's done. So
He is so talented. I've
yes.
seen pictures of his work.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's really good. And I saw what he did in your bathroom
Yeah.
with all those built-ins. That's
That was
amazing.
early on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's building Livy a dollhouse. So I'm excited to see how that ends up. But anyway, that's all I wanted to share. I'll send you
Okay.
pictures, but I probably will
Very
wait
cool.
to share pictures for the podcast group until it's
Mm-hmm.
finished.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. So today's topic is your favorite color red?
No.
Mine isn't either, but it should be.
Mm.
So is your favorite color red? I was listening to a podcast about writing, and in the writing world, um, when instructors are training others how to write, they teach them to be able to say, my favorite color is red. And it has to do with your mental attitude toward correction. And so you can envision a manuscript that somebody submits, and then the editors, like 4 or 5 different
Tear it
editors, go
up. Yeah.
through, and they all get to make their comments and suggestions and critiques. And I doubt anybody literally uses red ink anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the idea that when your manuscript comes back bleeding, as Michael Haidt used to
Mm-hmm.
say in class,
Yeah.
because it has red critique all over it, instead of reacting in discouragement or anger, that you should be grateful for that, because that gives you an opportunity to go back, change those things around, and make your writing even better. So that's the whole premise behind is your favorite color red, is learning to value and appreciate correction. Now, I said that this is a topic that we were both like, oh, because and talking about this ahead of time, we both freely admitted we really struggle with this. And this is one of those topics, everybody knows that my husband usually goes through and listens. This is one of those topics that I wish he would not listen,
No critique.
because I feel like he's going to be going,
Mm-hmm.
and later on, he might throw it back in my face. I
Yeah.
distinctly remember you saying on the podcast. But anyway,
That
learning
should
to,
not be allowed.
that should not be allowed. And usually he doesn't do that very often. Learning to value and appreciate correction. And I would say our reaction to it is probably not uncommon. I don't know that anybody finds it pleasant,
Mm.
and we're not even saying that it should be. As we're going to talk about in a little bit, the Bible describes it as a painful process.
Mm.
So I don't know that anybody's like, yes, bring it,
Yeah.
bring it on. I can't wait. Especially personal correction, especially spiritual personal correction,
Mm.
isn't pleasant and it's not fun. But to have an attitude of humility and a desire to grow means that we'll view it differently, we'll welcome it, we'll appreciate it, and we'll even love and value and appreciate the person who cares enough and
Mm.
is courageous enough to offer it.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. And when you sent me that topic, I said, I'm just going to sit here and listen because I'm horrible at that. There's just something about me that, and it doesn't happen very often because, and it's not because I don't need it. I think it's because where I am in life, there's not all that many. I don't have a boss necessarily
Mhm.
because we have our own
John is your
ministry.
boss. John's the boss of
Oh,
you.
can we just back up and you not say that? Because sometimes I say, you're
Don't
not the
say
boss of me.
don't say John's the boss of you.
Don't say that anymore. Are you correcting me?
I'm going to retitle this episode.
John is the boss of Carla.
You're not the
Well,
boss of me.
he is the CEO, technically.
Yeah.
He is the CEO of our, which doesn't make much sense, a ministry, but it is. That's the way that legally it's set up. But I was thinking to myself, have I positioned myself in life where I don't have to receive much correction? Like,
Oh.
did I purposely do that where I don't
Hmm.
want to be in a situation where
Hmm.
anyone has to correct me? And I kind of wonder about that. But so it doesn't happen very
That's
often, but when it
that's
does,
interesting.
yeah, when it does, I just feel like my hackles raising and I immediately start like picking apart what whoever's saying, that's not right because of this and this and this.
Hmm.
And even
Hmm.
like you were talking about writing, I
Hmm.
was thinking, I hadn't even thought about that with regard to, the things that I was kind of thinking about preparing for today. But mostly if I get something back that has correction, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because that's not what I meant. You didn't read what I read. This is my intent. So I don't even handle that very well, even if it's not spoken to me. So,
Hmm.
okay, so teach me.
Yeah, well, um, some of the things that they said in this podcast, I couldn't help but relate to our Christian walk. And as soon as I heard them say, we teach them to say, my favorite color is red, I thought that would be a great topic. The more they went on, so some of the things that they mentioned, I'm just going to share with you. Understand the difference between peer and professional critique.
Yeah.
And they were talking about there are certain dangers involved in peer critique. So if you're writing, what you really want to do is to get your best friend to be your
Oh,
editor because you're like, they'll be kind,
because you
they'll
don't
be
want to be
gentle.
friends anymore.
They're my cheerleader. They're only going to point out the good. They're only going to encourage and support. That's what we want. We want somebody to say, "This is amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know you had this in you." But for writers, they really need to get somebody who doesn't have any kind of a
Mm-hmm.
bias, however you say that word, and instead to hand it into the hand of a professional who can be objective and just look at it for the work's sake. They don't have any kind of emotional baggage or relationship. They're just looking at it for the work's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about um, the Jeremiah 6, where God charged the leaders, the prophets and priests, for giving false hope. He would say that they would cry, "Peace, peace," when there is no
Mm-hmm.
peace. And he just told them the messages that they wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But it really put them in danger. And
Yeah.
so um, that was an important point. And a faithful friend, Proverbs 27:6 says, a faithful friend will tell you true. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. So someone
Mm-hmm.
who is correcting out of love and concern. And we know the difference. Sometimes our hackles rise simply because the person that feels the need to criticize, we have no former contact with. Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
had somebody reach out to you on social media and the very first time they reach out to you, they have a criticism to
Yeah.
offer and you're
Mm-hmm.
like,
Whatever.
thanks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a faithful friend will tell you true, someone who corrects you out of love and concern, and you know that when they're approaching you. And then I thought it was interesting that both of those verses, the Jeremiah 6 one, peace, peace when there is no peace, goes on to compare it to a wound. And it says that it's like he uses the example of them like treating a mortal wound lightly. So in our language, we might say, you've got this gashing wound, mortal wound,
Band-aid on
and
that.
you're just going to
Mm-hmm.
put a little band-aid on it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what he compares it to. Peace, peace, it's fine, it's okay. And then the next one, Proverbs 27:6, faithful are the wounds of a friend. So they
Mm-hmm.
both kind of compare this to a wound,
It hurts. Mm-hmm.
addressing a wound, treating a wound. Yeah. And Hebrews 12:11, which I think we'll camp out a little bit in a few minutes in Hebrews 12, says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant." So, again, there is truth to the fact that it hurts, but just because it hurts doesn't mean we should reject it.
Mm-hmm.
All discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who've been trained by it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last one, Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to say before I move on?
Well, there was several verses or several proverbs that I thought about of the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And Proverbs 10:17 says, "He is on the path of life who heeds instruction, but he who ignores reproof goes astray." And then Proverbs 15:32, "He who neglects discipline despises himself, but he who listens to reproof acquires understanding." Are these ones that you're going to bring up later?
I have
I
some
want
of
to
those,
cover.
but that's because, no, that's fine, because there were a ton in Proverbs.
Yeah.
It'd really be a great personal study just to go through the book of Proverbs
Yeah.
and make note of the verses that have to do with discipline or correction.
Yeah. Proverbs
Yeah.
15:5, "A fool rejects his father's discipline, but he who
Mm-hmm.
regards reproof is sensible." And then Proverbs 19, several verses through there, but listen to counsel and accept discipline that you may be wise for the rest of your days. And then verse 25, "Reprove one who has understanding and he will gain knowledge." And so I was just thinking, so if you listen to instruction, Carla, you're on the path of life, you acquire understanding, you're sensible, you're wise, and you gain knowledge. There's all those positive things, and then there's the negative things. You're foolish. Yeah, that kind of stings a little bit. Despise yourself. You're a fool if you reject your father's discipline. So there's all those things that are good that come from listening to correction, and then the bad things when you don't. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things
yes,
in your head, but your heart is like, oh, I still don't want to do it.
well, you know it in your head and you apply it to everybody else.
Yeah, that's not about me.
But again, that's one of those things where if I saw that in black and white, that contrast, that chart, here's the one who embraces and values correction, here's the one that rejects it,
Yeah.
and what that actually looks like, that's me. I get to choose which one of those. And if I think I'm hiding that from people, I'm fooling myself.
Yeah.
If I'm
Right.
thinking I'm hiding my pride and I'm hiding my rejection or my ability to be corrected, that's a joke. Well, it's interesting that I kind of went in the same direction, but I don't know that any of our verses
Yeah.
are the same. That's how many there are. I don't know that any of them cross over. One of the other things that this writing podcast said was make sure the person critiquing you is in your genre. And they said, for example, somebody who enjoys only fiction, but you're asking them to critique a nonfiction manuscript, they might find it boring. And that'll come across in how they critique it. So again, I was thinking sometimes you have to consider the source. Is it somebody who even understands your allegiance to Christ and why you're making the decisions you're making? Sometimes we have to make hard decisions that won't make sense to people in the world.
Yeah.
And they might offer correction or critique that we still want to listen to, but consider the source. Are they using the Bible as their authority, or the world and society and feelings
or if it's somebody
else
that just wants to make you feel good and really doesn't, if it's somebody that's just telling you an echo chamber, telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah, echo chamber is good. Some people claim to love God, but they don't really know his will for them. And I don't, not intentionally, they don't realize that they don't understand it, but they might not know all the particulars involved in a situation. So, pay attention to that also. But, and then can you hear those dings?
No.
Is that coming across? Okay. Because I put this on the do not disturb, but I'm still getting the notifications.
Yeah, I get that too,
don't
but I can't hear them.
understand. Okay, good. So sort of camping out on what you just brought up, embracing correction is an avenue to growth. Here are the scriptures that I found. Proverbs 12, verse 1. Did you mention that one? I was trying to scan really quickly as you were saying them.
No.
Whoever loves discipline. Now, I got hung up on this one because it was using the word love. I'm trying to get to that point where I just don't like instantly
Uh-huh.
go through defense mode and create my lawyer
Mm-hmm.
defense of myself. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. And we like to say that we like to grow and learn more about God, learn more. We love to say that we love growing, but that involves loving discipline. According to this verse, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. That's what the
Yeah.
verse says. So add that to your chart.
Yeah. Stupid. We don't say
Yeah,
that word.
we don't say that word. The ESV does. So that was one of those verses. I was like, well, that's harsh.
But it's true.
That's harsh. Yeah. Um, 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 helps us understand that scripture is for our correction and helps us be equipped for every good work, helps us be complete.
But if it's the scripture telling me that, I can take it. Like if I know that's coming straight from God, where I struggle
Mm-hmm.
with is someone using scripture to correct me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
being honest. It's not so hard when it's just when you're reading it and you see yourself in it. I know some of
Mm-hmm.
us struggle with that, and of course I do too, but it's more of a struggle for me if it's a person and not the scripture itself.
Well, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I thought about that too because many of the verses have to do with God's correction. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that God uses people,
Sure.
his people, and that we're supposed to admonish one another.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was thinking that file this under that category of pride
Mm-hmm.
because if it's my idea, I handle it a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
If I read that scripture and it's my idea that, oh, I should probably work on that, it goes
Yeah.
across a lot better than for somebody else to point it out for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, excuse me, who do you think you are?
But
Uh, Paul David Tripp in this book on marriage that I keep bringing up says sin is blinding, and guess who it blinds first?
mm,
Yeah. And he was using it to talk about how it's a barrier to unity in marriage and growth in marriage because when your loved one draws a fault to your attention, and we react defensively, we don't take that very well. That's when he used that sentence: sin is blinding, and guess who it blinds first? It's so much easier, as we were saying, to see faults in others than it is
mm-hmm.
ourselves, which is why we need that correction.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not a matter of, I know it's there, I'm just not ready to deal with it, or I just haven't dealt with it, or I just, don't want to. Sometimes we just don't see it. We're not even
Mm-hmm.
aware that we're getting caught up in a dangerous situation, a bad habit, a character trait that's not good. We're just blind to it, and we need somebody else who is courageous and caring enough to point it out.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the verses teach us that we need to understand correction as proof of love and relationship. And this, it seems like it'd be so simple. If this is at the core of my understanding when I receive correction, wouldn't I welcome it? Wouldn't I react in gratitude toward the person who's doing the correcting instead of resentment? So God says in Revelation 3:19, those whom I love, I reprove and discipline.
And maybe you're going to bring this up later or camp out in it later, but some of that depends on how you know that person feels about you.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone who you have zero relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
or worse, you have kind of a negative history with, and
Mm-hmm.
they try to correct you, that's just lost. And I agree that me being the one trying to receive correction, I bear responsibility in that. But if it's somebody that I know has a problem with me and they're trying to correct me, I just immediately chalk that up to, well, they just don't like me, they're mad at me, or they're, even if it's if John and I are having a disagreement about something, and in the middle of this disagreement about something else, he brings up something that I need correction in, it's just not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I know he loves me and
Yeah.
I need that correction. But if it feels like it's coming from a place of him being punitive or trying to make me feel bad, whatever, then it's not very effective. And I know it's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to talk about ways to receive it. But I guess I'm saying if you're the one giving correction, if you have no relationship, if you have a bone to pick with somebody, if you're in the middle of some other disagreement, your timing is bad or your motive is bad. So that
Yeah.
maybe that's another day topic. I don't know.
No, I did have that. I had that at the end. So we'll just skip to that. If you're the one doing the correcting, first of all, there's a process, a scriptural process. Matthew 18:15 through 17 tells us how to handle it. Go to that person one-on-one. And then Galatians 6 talks about the demeanor and our attitude and a spirit of gentleness.
Yeah.
Considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. So drawing attention to the behavior, not the person. Sometimes, like you're talking about in the heat of the moment, we're attacking the person or the character instead of the actual issue itself or the behavior itself. And that makes people feel personally attacked, as you're saying. You kind of reject that anyway. So we do have that other side of it, if you're the one doing the correcting, to consider. But in light of embracing, Carla, I would suggest that even in those moments, though, when maybe the motives aren't right because it's somebody that doesn't like you anyway, is there truth to the criticism? Because it could be that that's the only person who's ever going to say anything to you about it, because they don't care how you feel. They're trying to hurt you and they want you to know you have faults. Is there truth in the criticism? Even in the heat of an argument in marriage, which I totally agree is not the time to drag things up. But because that your husband or, loved one is angry and lashing out, are they saying things that normally they wouldn't want to bring up because they don't want to hurt your feelings?
Right. And they have the courage finally.
Is there truth to the criticism? So I think it was Mike Vestal that said, even in the harshest criticism, oftentimes there's a kernel of truth. Embrace the kernel. And so however we feel when we're receiving it because of the situation or the source, I don't know that it necessarily means we just discount it. We want to. But maybe first we should do some honest self-assessment. We may not appreciate the way it was handled. I think a lot of times that's the problem. We don't appreciate the way it was handled.
Right.
But,
and that's a lack of maturity and a lack of humility on my part.
Yeah. But what if there is truth? And we need to see that. Proverbs 3:11 and 12. I don't think you mentioned that one. Did you? Okay. No. Do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. I like that one too, because how often is it one and done? I only had to correct you one time. You're good to go. No. Do not be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him who he loves, as the Father the Son in whom he delights. So again, this idea of reproof is proof of love and relationship. Okay, and then the Hebrews 12. And I just really wanted to go ahead and read these few verses. It's a little bit lengthy, but it's so perfectly stated, so perfectly goes with what we're talking about. Hebrews 12, starting at verse 5. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. So there's that relationship, love, son. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we've had earthly fathers who disciplined us and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who've been trained by it. So that's the one I read earlier. And I just love how, again, there's discipline from God that could, maybe that happens in things that he allows to happen in our lives because we need some refining, definitely through the word as we're holding it up as a mirror, but also through his people being disciplined, recognizing verse 10 that it's for our good so that we may share in his holiness. So again, appreciating and valuing and welcoming correction, because knowing ultimately it's for our own good. And then in the moment, it seems painful. And I think, we're such people of comfort. We keep talking about this. We don't like to be uncomfortable.
Mm-mm.
We don't like people to call attention to things. We don't like being held accountable. We don't like feeling judged.
Don't
All
like
of
being
these
wrong.
things, we don't like being wrong. All these things are completely go against our society.
Mm-hmm.
But God says we need it. And yes, it's painful. It's not fun. Nobody enjoys it. But allow yourself to experience the pain and the discomfort while still having a change in mindset toward the beauty of the correction that's taking place. And the reason this is so hard is because where are you faced with it most often? I mean, you've kind of set the stage for you don't really have a boss, outside of John.
You just
But
had to bring that up again.
where where do you face it most often?
From John.
Probably, yeah, probably the people who are closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
And parent-child relationship, husband-wife relationship, church family relationships. But even then, I would venture it doesn't happen very often.
No, not as
Um,
often as it should, probably.
not as often as it should. So that can lead to, if we don't accept and welcome and have a humble spirit toward correction, obviously it leads to strife, a barricade to growth because your husband knows he can't ever talk to you about it. He's got to walk on eggshells. He knows if he brings it up, it's going to go to a bad place. So why bother?
Yeah.
And that's not good. That's not good. So, yes, Neil, I'm aware that's not good.
Well, but I feel like I'm not defending. Maybe I am a little bit, but I'm just saying I've asked John before when he has said, I feel he said that very thing. I feel like I can't bring this up because you won't receive it. And I have said, if you will bring it up in a calm situation, not in the heat of battle, it will go over. Not that we battle, you know what I mean? It'll go over better with me.
Mhm.
And I totally agree with what you're saying, that I should receive it anyway and hear it. And it's pride instead of humility. And I need to have the spirit of humility. And I mean, if I had that to begin with, then we probably wouldn't be in the middle of conflict anyway. And him too, both of us, if we both had the spirit of
So
humility.
true. So true. Although
And I feel like it all goes back to humility.
I have to admit, I have had some people message me very kindly. Like they start out saying, I appreciate you and blah, 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 blah. However, and my hackles still raise. I'm like, excuse me?
But you still listen. I mean, I think we do.
I do, but I'm trying to talk about the humility. For me, so the next section I have is barriers to correction. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. The number one is pride and arrogance.
Yeah.
And that's my big struggle. And I hope I'm not alone. I mean, I guess I hope I'm alone because I don't want everybody to struggle with that, but I hope I'm not alone in this. But it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware of it. It's not one of those things that I'm not aware of. I'm completely aware of it. And Neil is so much better at it than I am.
John too.
About receiving correction. If I say something to him, handling it from other people, there are times when I feel defensive of him. And I'm like wanting to go, let me at him. I'm fixing up. And he just kind of blows it off, consider the source, or, we talked about, he's fine. He just handles it really well. And I don't. I'm aware of that. So this is, I may have shared this on here before, but I can't remember. So I'm going to share it again. But for example, a dear friend of ours several years ago invited us to dinner. And Neil and I went to dinner. And in the course of that dinner, proceeded to warn us about some things that he saw in our lifestyle. And said, I'm just bringing this up because I'm worried about you, blah, blah, blah. And so we were both kind of blindsided by that. And as we left, you can imagine the conversation that we had in the car. We thought we were just going out to dinner. We didn't know that he had an agenda.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know us and he doesn't know, and we're perfectly fine. And we blah, blah, blah. And we even do this and we do that. And we even like at refuting
Hmm.
the very concern that he brought up because we know we blah, blah, blah. That year ended up being practically one of the worst in our entire marriage. And it wasn't until months later, working through some things, making some changes, it hit me. Those things that I realized we were needing to change were the very things that he brought up.
Mm.
And if my heart was humble and receptive and not blind, and willing to understand this is a person of wisdom, he does care, he does instead of us just being like, who does he think
Hmm.
we may have saved ourselves a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
So that's just a small example of sort of pride and arrogance, rejecting correction, not welcoming it, not receiving it, not we didn't even bother. We didn't even bother to look at it and see if there's any truth to it.
Yeah.
And anyway, we did go back years later and thank this person.
Well, the thing,
uh,
I think when people do that, we do think about what they're saying, even if
mhm,
we're not soaking it in and, and taking it, we're thinking about it. And I think it stays in your mind. And maybe we don't do as much, well, I know we don't do as much actual correcting of the things that they're trying to help correct, but they've planted that seed and it's
mhm,
taking root. And I think that it's doing some good. And you are reading Hebrews, and afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. But I never noticed this before. The two verses right after that
I
in
almost
New
shared that one.
American.
Mhm.
Were you going to?
No, I almost did. I decided not to keep
Yeah.
reading.
Therefore, strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble, and make
Mhm.
straight paths for your feet, so that the limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. I love that imagery that it's not, you're not, he presents it, and this is New American. I don't know what the ESV says, but strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble. It's kind of like you get this mental picture of, it's not the corrector standing there pointing a finger at you, but they're putting their arm around you and helping make you stronger. And
Yes.
your knees that are, out of joint, or you're weak, or, I'm just picturing people who are older and that really need help, and you're holding them and helping them along. And when I think of it that way, it's a whole lot easier for me to say, oh, you're right. You're trying to strengthen me. You're trying to make me stronger, and you're trying to help me get from here to there, rather
Mhm.
than you're just trying to tell me I'm wrong. So I think that's going to help me thinking about that verse, that someone, a corrector, whether it's John or somebody else, they're trying to strengthen me, whether or not that's their motivation, whether or not they're
Exactly.
back there going, I'm just trying to help you, even if it's something that's painful. That's
It makes
really what the
me
motivation is.
think about that verse that I can't remember which book it's in. Philippians, Galatians, where God talks about preachers with poor motives.
Mm.
They may be preaching for, attention
Philippians.
or money or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, whatever it is, but it's still the gospel. And the
Mm-hmm.
gospel still has the power to make changes in the heart.
Yeah.
And to me, it's that same sort of situation. The situation may not be good, the motives may not be good, the relationship may not be good,
Mm-hmm.
but
But it's
it's still
true.
a correction. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to what you were saying. Ultimately, it'll make us stronger. Like the writing illustration, embrace the red marks because you want your manuscript to be better. You want it to be the very best it can be. We shoot ourselves in the foot when we reject correction because ultimately it'll make us spiritually stronger. Even if the growth comes simply from swallowing our pride
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledging correction,
Mm-hmm.
and we create these habits, how we respond. And, do we respond with our hackles are raised, or we're proud, we're too proud, we're defensive, we're thinking of our, our list of reasons why that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
We create this habit of responding that way when corrected. Um, Another barrier is self righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
just this
Yeah.
idea of, well, who, who do you think you are? Because
You did this and this and
I
this.
I do all these things. What have you
Mm-hmm.
done?
Yeah.
That's ooh. That's ugly. Um, a lack of spiritual growth is another one. I thought if we've been coasting on Bible knowledge that we gained in our youth, we've been coasting for years. We've
Yeah.
never really challenged ourselves in the word to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Our heart is probably not going to be receptive to correction.
Mm-hmm.
Closed mindedness, this idea of only seeing things your way and not respecting somebody else's perspective. And it could be that they're older than you. They've already been where you are. You've never been where they are. They're older than you. They have wisdom, they have experience, or they just see things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
They can see things objectively. Uh, I had to add in control freaks. You can't tell me nothing. I'm in charge. You know, I'm not changing this. I'm not doing this differently. I'm not whatever.
There's a reason I do it this way.
There's a
I don't want to hear
reason
yours.
it's worked this way for years.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I think about that with the generation gap and how the younger ones want to try something new and the older ones say, no, we've done it this way for years because it works this way. But
Mm-hmm.
the older need to hear, okay, there's maybe a better way of doing things. So that
Mm-hmm.
humility on both sides, and man, humility
Yes.
is just key. Getting
Well,
rid of
and
pride.
and to remember too, we're talking about the strength and it makes us better, but isn't God the one doing that?
Yeah.
When others correct us and we receive it, God's the one that strengthens us. God's the one that's able to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen us in those moments because we've humbled ourselves. He can't work with an arrogant, proud heart.
Oh.
And He's the one that causes the growth and the strengthening and the betterment of our souls when we allow ourselves to be humbled. Another one is priorities. Maybe just not willing to take the time to go back or do things right. Defensiveness, we've already talked about that. And then it could be that somebody's in a situation of sin. The correction that comes along is a situation of sin, a bad situation you're in. You're not handling this right. You're not acting right in this scenario. You're not acting right with a brother or sister in Christ. You didn't treat this person, whatever it is. And you have no desire to change or repent. And it could be you just don't want to, you don't want to give up a sin, you're comfortable with a bad habit that you've had for years, whatever it might be. So
Mm-hmm.
there's all these barriers that we allow to fill our heart that keeps us from welcoming and valuing correction.
Mm-hmm. The first time I really thought about this story was a class that you taught between Moses and Jethro. And remember
Mm-hmm.
how Moses was
Mm-hmm.
wearing himself out doing the judging and, taking care of the people. And Jethro comes up and says, what's going on here, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And I read another article about that this morning, talking about how Jethro was the corrector. And what did he do? He asked questions. He didn't just
Mm-hmm.
walk in and say, you're so dumb. You shouldn't be doing this all by yourself. You could be doing it this way. He asked some clarifying questions. And then this article said that he was graciously frank. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that's how to handle correction, to be graciously frank.
Don't hem haw around.
Yeah, just be gracious in your words. And there are scriptures about that. Let your words be seasoned with salt and grace. And then he said to undergird, don't undermine. So don't be harsh and ridicule somebody, but build them up in what is right. And when you're making correction about what is wrong. And then as far as Moses, he was the one who was being corrected. He listened. He didn't reject immediately. And it was his father-in-law. So it probably was not, not knowing much about that relationship, but he resisted pride and he listened. He didn't bristle. He didn't brush it off. He wasn't trying to save face with whatever it was that he was doing. He didn't pull spiritual rank, like you were mentioning a minute ago. Remember that correction is a gift for not just for me, but for others, because there are ripple effects. For Moses, it was the whole congregation of the people. But for us, if we in our families as mothers receive correction, it's going to trickle down to our children. If we learn to be gracious, if we learn to apologize, we learn to say we're wrong. So many times I've thought I did not do very well in that area to teach my children to say I'm sorry or I was wrong, because I struggle with that. And does that follow with our children? If it's something that we struggle with, is it something that they're going to struggle with? Are they going to have a hard time saying I'm sorry or apologizing or saying I was wrong?
Ugh.
So, yeah, I mean, and then I thought about Paul and Philemon, and I know we don't have time to go there, but there's just lots of different ways that we can look and learn from people in Scripture who were corrected and
Mhm.
handled it either in the correction, giving the correction, or receiving. They handled it well. There's also some.
I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about that. And I love that account and of
Mhm.
Moses and Jethro. Moses listened and he also followed through. He did
Yeah.
exactly what Jethro
Yeah.
suggested. And as you said, more people were blessed because he put other people in key situations and it
Mhm.
gave them an opportunity to grow and serve
Yeah.
because he was humble and received correction.
To quote you or whoever you got it from, don't steal my blessing.
Yeah, I first heard that from my sister. I don't know where she got it from. But yeah, that's a good one. Proverbs 9, verses 7 through 9 says, a wise person will love the one who reproves him. So I just kind of want to end on this thought because I'm keeping an eye on the time.
Mhm.
It's not just loving the correction, but loving the person who cared enough to correct you.
Yeah.
Instead of reacting in anger or defensiveness or lashing out, loving the one who's doing the reproving. A foolish person will abuse the one who corrects them. Oh, that's Proverbs 9, 7 through 9. And it just cuts me to the heart because I know I've been guilty of that.
Mhm.
And my pride and hurt feelings, lashing out and saying something back, and abusing the one bringing the correction instead of loving them and appreciating them for it. Here's another one. Proverbs 10:17. He who rejects reproof leads others astray.
Mhm. I saw that one.
And it kind of goes on with
Ouch.
what you were just saying. Other people are watching.
Yeah.
Other people are watching, and it has an impact. And if we reject it, we're affecting the souls of other people, not just our own. It's not just
Mhm.
my pride problem that I'm aware of and going, oh, I blew it again. We are affecting other people. And Proverbs 10:17 says we lead others astray. So some things to think about for the
Yeah.
week ahead.
Yeah, this could have been a whole lot longer episode, but
It really could. I feel like we could camp out on a lot of these
mhm.
verses and things for a lot longer, but lots to pray through, think about. And we know that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, Philippians 4:13. God and his word have the power to change hearts.
Mhm.
So I just pray that I don't fall back into that habit of excusing myself. I see it in the moment and I even feel it in the heat of the moment. You're not handling this very graciously,
Mhm.
Kathy. But, I need to turn my heart over to God's will and allow him to be seen in my reactions.
Yeah, I'm imagining what John would do if he corrected me about something I said. You know what? You are right. I'd probably bust out
Neil would
laughing.
fall over. He would
Be like
fall
one of those
over in
fainting
shock.
goats.
Yeah.
Well, it was probably something that I need to maybe the next time that happens. And if I
Yes.
just take a deep breath and say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to do better. Thank you for, oh man, he would hug me and
He
love
would
me.
melt.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
And
There was that one time
one time.
in the heat of battle that we never have that I just reached out and hugged Neil and he just melted.
Mhm.
I should have been like, oh, this is wonderful. This is my new MO. But I think it was just that one time.
It's that pride. It's
It is.
stinking stupid
Because I'd
pride.
rather nurse my anger and seek
Mhm.
vengeance than give way to grace and humility and
Yeah.
the right thing. Yeah.
All right, we're going to grow.
We're going to grow. This was every bit as painful as I thought it would be.
Yeah. But we're sharing the pain, so
we hope everybody else is as miserable as we are right now. You're
yeah.
welcome. Misery loves company.
So are we asking
No.
everyone to write us next week and give us some correction?
No.
No. Unless we need it.
You know how when you pray for patience, God gives you
Mhm.
things to.
Yeah.
I feel like if I pray for this, then here it comes.
Yeah. Slowly
All
and
right.
carefully.
Okay. Well, it has been a good conversation. We're a little over on time, so I'm going to go ahead and say, Carla, until next time.
Keep looking up.
And we will. I love you so much, friend.
Love you too. I'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you later. Bye.
Okay.